everybody, it's Elizabeth from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. So this is going to be my take on my video for the astrology of November 2022. And of course, we know that the eclipse season started on the 25th of October with a new moon in Scorpio, and then proceeds forward now to a full moon, which I'll speak about in a minute. We also have a new moon in Sagittarius. And just as a heads up, I would say the latter part of November 2022 will be much more positive, inspirational, and just filled with a little bit more joy than, say, the first part of November. All right, so when we look at the 5th of November, which is a Saturday on the Pacific coast, we have Venus opposing Uranus. And of course, so we're looking at Scorpio for Venus. And Venus is not necessarily comfortable or effervescent or happy in Scorpio. And then, of course, Uranus is in Taurus. So I wanted to start off with this instead of just jumping straight into the total eclipse, which is going to be on the 8th of November 2022, because I see this eclipse playing out as a process, and I think it starts off with this on the 5th of November. So we have, well, what does Venus represent? Typically, we say Venus represents love, for sure. So certainly for some individuals, there may be some kind of instant attraction that happens. And certainly if you've got something in Scorpio, say around the 16 degree mark, we'll take 15 to 18 degrees of Scorpio, there may be something that happens to you with regards to an instant attraction to somebody. And again, that's on the 5th. But Venus also represents our values and represents the female, right? Women. And so I think this could really have an escalation of this type of thing that's already playing out as we've seen it ourselves in the news media, that females are rising up. Females are rebelling. Uranus represents the rebellion, and I think Venus here represents females. So that's what we have starting off, kicking things off like that. Now, it could individually too have a specific female that sets off rebellions as well. We've already had some of that playing out already, but this may actually continue right the way through the beginning of November. But at the same time, we also have the moon will be conjunct Chiron at that time. So this to me emphasizes the moon being the collective. So the collective women wanting healing at this time, wanting to feel whole and rising up and rebelling. Now, this may also play out in the US as well, and it may play out in the elections, where that's on our ballot as well with regards to female rights, right? So I think that's going to play out and show itself in a big way on a collective level for females. Okay, so when we go into the 8th of November, which is the day that we're going to have this significant total eclipse, which, you know, my goodness, this eclipse is going to cover so much, certainly of the Western world, and further down into Argentina and that, and well over to Russia and parts of China. I did make a video, an extensive video on this already, including all the sun signs and ascendants. So I'm going to put the link in my text box for that. And I would suggest that you go directly to there after you've watched this November video to really get more in-depth. I really spent a lot of time. I also put a lot of links on this video with regards to where in the world can you see it and what times, and I think you'll find it very informative. So I'm really going to do more of an overview of this eclipse in this November video, and then just focus on other energies that are happening here. But certainly this is a significant total eclipse in Taurus, and not to be taken lightly. But for some people, like don't go around being afraid of this eclipse. This eclipse I see on an individual level is there to break you out of things that have held you back, people that have held you back, places that may have held you back, etc., etc. So if you need to be breaking out and you've not had literally a break to get out of your situation, this eclipse could very well bring it along for you. Now, especially if you have anything around, say, the 16-degree mark of Taurus, because that's where the moon will be, but then it's a full moon. So we know that the opposite sign, Scorpio, is also going to be affected, and that would be the sun being in Scorpio at 16 degrees of Scorpio. And then, of course, we have, significantly, Uranus conjunct that eclipsed moon. Or the eclipse of the moon. So I would say that keep it fairly close in orb, so in terms of degrees, because a lot of times these eclipses can go by individually without really much happening in our lives. I personally see this eclipse operating more at a collective level. And for sure, we are going to see a lot of rebellious type of energy, not only coming up from the people, but other potential governments just striking out and using this eclipse energy to do that. And this could happen in many different parts of the world and may not be just restricted to, say, one part like Ukraine, which is obvious right now. That will continue. It can also bring things like earth events of some sort too, right? So unexpected weather of some sort to do with the earth. And that could be anything. It could literally be like earthquakes, tornadoes, that sort of thing. That can happen with regards to this if we take it up to more of a collective level. But I really see that our collective destiny, because of course we have the north nodes of the moon also very closely in orb. So I see this, first of all, on this day, the 8th of November. Now I'm looking at Pacific Standard Time, but we first have the moon conjunct those transiting north nodes, and that's around 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but that's actually on the 7th of November. So that's the first thing that happens with regards to this eclipse in terms of it progressing towards the actual total eclipse the next day. So that to me signals that whatever is going to be happening here, probably literally over the next 6 months, it has something to do with all of our collective destiny here. So we need to pay attention to the small things as well as the big things that happen around this eclipse. All right, after that, we have on the 8th of November, now we're coming into the day of the eclipse, we have that moon is going to be opposite to Mercury, and that's at 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I see now this moon having gone over the destiny of our collective destiny to now go on to oppose Mercury. So this is bringing in some kind of communication or communications that are going to be sent out to us at this time. And don't forget, Uranus is going to be operating around this time relentlessly, right? And if we look at what Uranus represents when we compare it to Mercury, many times Uranus is looked at as the higher octave of Mercury. So like I said, we have here 2 a.m., 8th November, that moon is opposing Mercury, but we have also conjuncting that moon, not far off, Uranus. So I would say this is going to be some very upsetting, unexpected news, and maybe more than one piece of news come in around this time, Pacific Standard Time. So now that leads on to us having the moon then is going to be opposing Venus at 11 a.m. Actually, just prior to that, we have the moon coming into now exactly conjunct that very unstable, surprising energy of Uranus, and that's at 3 a.m. We have that happening. Now, it will be opposing the sun too. So we've got the moon conjunct Uranus, exactly. But we have that moon and Uranus oppose the sun at 3 a.m. on the 8th of November. So I think this could be, if there's an event, this will be the time that strike happens, right? And then, as I mentioned earlier, we go on then to have a wide opposition with Venus at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this brings in that element of values for sure. Venus represents values. It also represents potentially females, but it can also be another thing tied in with our money, right? Venus can represent money too. So there's a number of things I see potentially playing out at this eclipse, and it may not just be restricted to rebellious energy from other countries, rebellion of people in countries, but this could be the striking point of some big change in our financial systems too. All right, so we move on to the 10th here of November. We have a beautiful trine at around 24 degrees of both Venus in Scorpio and Neptune in Pisces. Now, we do get this happening once a year at least, so it's not that it doesn't happen semi-regularly. But this is just a beautiful energy. Now, Venus being in Scorpio has a lot of deep feelings at this time. That's that whole feelings run extremely deeply at this time. But trining Neptune, it's almost like you feel that for those people that have, say, fallen in love earlier on in November, you feel that you've met your soulmate. That's kind of the energy that we look at when we talk about Venus being in Scorpio, trining beautiful, inspirational, altruistic love, Neptune. So that's a lovely energy there. And if you have certainly something around 24 degrees, either of Scorpio or of Pisces, you've got this direct trine happening for you operating, and it's just beautiful energy. It can also bring in, for those folks that are certainly, say, in the music industry or any artistic endeavor, this can bring great inspiration to create beautiful things, beautiful music at this time. So the next day, on the 11th, we have that moon will now be conjunct Mars, but trining, or not trining, but squaring Neptune. And I do not see this as a positive thing, unfortunately. When we have a Mars is of course retrograde at this point in Gemini, squaring Neptune, planet of potential confusion, I would say that this could bring in, again, these smoke and mirrors types effect. Now, because Mars is retrograde, this is talking about energies working behind the scenes to cover things up. But I also saw that other energy that Neptune can give, and that's dissolving. So I'm not sure how this will play out, but it's like this energy behind the scene dissolving things is all I can say. Now, we know that Mars is in Gemini, so this is potentially something to do with communication. So this could be maybe some kind of communications to the global networking world of some sort. So this is like the news that we watch on our TV, the news we get on the internet type thing, where it's illusionary, false, and maybe even a little bit deceitful. Now, if you do have something like this playing out in your own chart, take care around this day on the 11th. Now, this will not be the last time that we have a Mars square Neptune, but because the moon's involved here too, this is bringing in confusion around our emotional lives as well. So it could have some people that have a direct connection with the degree point of this. So this is kind of in around the 24 degree mark, 23, 24 degree mark of Gemini when we talk about the Mars. And of course, Neptune is going to be at around 24 degrees of Pisces. So just take care of what, things that you're told, especially messages that you're given. Maybe don't believe everything that you hear. That's kind of like an overall energy that you could ascribe to something like a Mars square Neptune. With the whole moon involved here, it could have us just feeling kind of confused. On the 12th and the 13th of November, we actually have a nice, interesting yod being formed. And at its base, we have Venus at 25 Scorpio. We have powerful Pluto at 25 degrees of Capricorn. And this is pointing to that Mars retrograde at 24 degrees of Gemini. And this is a powerful yod where you've got transformational energy happening here, I think, for females that have been held back. And we know that this can be operating in many different countries, not just in, say, Iran. This is also happening in the US on a certain level too. But it's pointing to that Mars retrograde. And so I read this as potentially we may have some kind of reconsideration of messages that were put out at some point regarding females and their power being reconsidered. And that once that Mars retrograde goes direct, we may have some real positive messages coming out regarding females gaining their power back. And that is going to happen after the Mars retrograde ends, which is going to be around the 12th of January next year. Then we still have Mercury or Mars rather still having to come out of the shadow period. So let's say more like February, March. I would say there's going to be good news, especially in March when we have that Mars now going direct, conjuncting that point of 24 degrees of Gemini. But the other thing that Gemini actually represents, it represents our youth. So we're looking at the age group between 14 and 21 years old. So I see that this age group is going to be featured at this yod as well and have a tie-in with youth regarding that Mars retrograde and the messages being either given out to them or the messages they are giving out to us. On the 13th, we have a lovely sextile with Venus and Pluto. So here we have, again, this beautiful energy of love, bringing opportunities to maybe manifest something very powerful. So for those folks that say have Venus and or any planet that is around, say, 25 degrees of either Scorpio or the 26 degree mark or so of Capricorn, this could bring some opportunities for transformational love. But on another level, this can bring in transformational energy with regards to our values, right? Venus also represents our values. So the first half, certainly, of November, we really have this focus on, one, our values, potentially our money, and then, of course, for females. And these are kind of high-level things here. We've got, Pluto and Neptune involved. And we've also got a little bit of a tie-in of the eclipse, as well as Uranus, that does this wide opposition. So that first half is really going to put a focus on, and I really want to spend a little bit of time here on our value system. And so whatever is going to happen at that eclipse, it's going to force all of us to ask ourselves, what is it that we value? What is it that we value in ourselves as a collective, and could have us all questioning things as a result of whatever events happen around us at this time. But that's a lovely sextile to have Venus sextile Pluto. It may bring in some opportunities, literally, for women to gain their power back. On the 18th of November, we have Mercury going into Sagittarius. Now, it's not necessarily viewed astrologically as a favorable place for Mercury, but hey, Sagittarius is all about optimism, positive thinking, looking towards the future, being optimistic about the future. And so I just saw this as a very positive thing on the 18th of November, is that we may have some very positive messages coming in. Now, in particular, these messages may be coming in from foreign places or foreign things, because that also has to do with Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius rules foreign places, foreign people. It also rules the law. So we may have some important messages coming in with regards to laws of some sort, or maybe some legal cases. It also represents travel. And so this may be also a green light with regards to us being able to more easily travel, that communications regarding travel, maybe even getting our tickets and things like that, will just be easier. Going overseas, that's represented by Sagittarius, could just be smoother at this time. So on the 19th, we still have this Mars is going to be directly squaring Neptune again. And it will be minus the moon at this time. So this is just a direct square. And I just see this as subversive type stuff, where people, that on the collective level, there's these messages being put out. It's almost like feeding propaganda. That's what I got with this Mars in Gemini going retrograde with the square to Neptune. It's propaganda, where what's being said in the public is nothing remotely regard to what's actually going on behind the scenes, right? I also got this as cover-ups of some sort. All right, so on the 23rd, we have a new moon in Sagittarius. So Happy New Year to all my Sagittarians. Now, this is at 1 degree of Sagittarius, 37 minutes. It's at 2:57 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 23rd of November. And the other lucky thing that happens, the ruler of Sagittarius, and that would be Jupiter, goes direct at 28 degrees of Pisces. Whoa, what a day. If you have either your ascendant around, say, either 0 to 2 or 3 degrees of Sagittarius, or your sun is around this. So those would be those folks that are born really towards the last week of November. It's those birthdays that are going to really be highlighted in a big way. And if you do have anything around those degrees, like your sun or ascendant, that sets you up for lots of new beginnings with regards to the following birthday year, right? And especially with that, your actual ruler, Jupiter, going direct that day. And it's in Pisces, which is a very inspirational sign, right? That's super positive. That, to me, brings in an extra little dollop of good luck. But overall, this might just be a wonderful day for new beginnings, where many folks can see a positive view of their future. So there may be some events that happen around us, and typically those might be in foreign places, foreign things, anything to do with the legal profession, anything to do with travel. All these things could come into play too around this time period of this new moon. That sets off some really positive energies where we can see more clearly an optimism for our future. On the 28th, we have Mars still retrograde. We'll be trining Saturn. And this will occur at 19 degrees of Gemini and 19 degrees of Aquarius, respectively. Well, this is just a lovely setup of energy where we have concerted energy that is more focused to do some planning with regards to those that are in, say, positions of authority. That is going to be something that's brought in here. So I think this more of people working together to maybe hammer out some interesting communications that may have some implications for us with regards to rules and regulations. So that's what Saturn can represent as well. Not only people that are, say, superior to us or above us, like managers and directors, but it also talks about rules and regulations here. So I see this as potential planning with regards to some rules and regulations And maybe this is going to be more on a collective level, like a worldwide level. I've talked about this before in videos, but this is just a lovely setup of planning together. It's not just taking action on it, it's actually planning in many respects behind the scenes, people getting together to put things in place. So the 29th of November, we have still Mars retrograde is going to be opposite Mercury. So that's going to be Mercury, obviously, in Sagittarius. And this could just have some communications coming in with regards to, again, our foreign nations. And it could be that some action might be taken at this time. That's behind the scenes, not seen, but it comes to light in some kind of communications. So this is an opposition. This is something that is not necessarily, it will be positive in the sense that it will give us the information that we need, but the actual action of this with an opposition could cause some challenges to some folks here. On the 30th of November, we have Mercury a sextile Saturn. And so this is bringing together messages, contracts. It'll be a good day to have an opportunity to put contracts together. So certainly if you are, say, taking on a new job or taking on, say, employees in your organization, this gives you lots of opportunities to work out the contract in a favorable way. But it does bring in opportunities to kind of quote the rules and regulations that say go with a contract type of situation as well. It could have negotiations brought up to a collective level as well. Perhaps there will be some countries that decide to enter into some fruitful communications because, of course, Mercury is all about communications. We also have that day, a Venus in Sagittarius is going to be opposite that Mars retrograde in Gemini. So for some folks, this could bring in some kind of, I see this more as a flirtatious type thing. And certainly Gemini is a flirtatious sign. And then having the Venus in Sagittarius kind of gives it also a little bit of flirtatious, let's have fun. I mean, Sagittarius loves to have fun. It loves to take risks and loves to travel. So there may be some folks that decide to set up some kind of travel arrangements right around the end of November successfully at this time. But it can also bring in love relationships too. I would say that this is going to be bringing in love relationships that are a little more, not superficial in the sense that they couldn't be serious, but they may start off as something flirtatious and fun-loving. So this can also be fun-loving events as well. Even though Mars is retrograde, that's okay. And of course, Mars being in Gemini, if this is a love type situation, it could be more than one person. So these could be for some folks that have, say, something around these degrees or these signs, both Sagittarius and or Gemini. This could just bring up some lovely social events. So that ends actually November as a month astrologically. In terms of looking forward to December, December brings in a full moon for Geminis. So for Geminis, you're going to have some kind of tie-up in December that may be actually beneficial for you because don't forget, you're also going to have Mars retrograde in your sign. So there may be some tie-ups in December for some Geminis where something, maybe something has to end in order to begin again. But I'll cover that again in my next month's video. We also have a new moon at 1 degree of Capricorn that will happen. And that's going to happen around the 23rd of December. But we also have happening Mercury retrograde ending the year in Capricorn. So for some Capricorns, that may involve you having to go back on some of your written work or any messages that you sent out. The big news is that towards the end of December, we will have Jupiter going in ingressing back in for a second time to 0 degrees of Aries. So, hey, Aries, this is a big signal for you. Certainly bringing in potential for good luck for you, benefits coming in, people like advisors and teacher coming in for you as well. All right, so next I'm going to go into each of the individual ascendants and sun signs. All right, so for Pisces, this total eclipse in Taurus is in your 3rd house, and it forms a lovely sextile with your sign, Pisces. And so I would say, like, the 3rd house represents a number of things. Generally speaking, we speak of the 3rd house as communications of any sort. It's also writing. It is our siblings. It's our neighborhood that we're in. Therefore, short journeys are also viewed at this time. Now, the sextile says to me that you're going to be unexpectedly being given opportunities to promote or to utilize any of those areas that I've just mentioned that are 3rd house related. But generally speaking, I see this as potentially a lot of Pisces being able to give them the opportunity to write, to unexpectedly be able to write something of significance. Maybe your own story of your life will come through here. Maybe you'll provide an inspirational story to others. But it's going to be something unexpected with Uranus in the mix here, right? Now, it won't directly affect Neptune, which of course is still in your sign as well. Neptune is around, I think, the 24-degree mark. And this eclipse, of course, takes place around the 16-degree mark. You could also get unexpected opportunities to travel more locally as opposed to, say, overseas. Where unexpectedly you've got to, maybe for your job, start traveling to maybe more locations. That could be up for some Pisces here too. Now, the new moon in Sagittarius squares Pisces, and it's in your 10th house. All right, so the 10th house is mainly your career. So this says to me that there's going to be some new initiative taking place in your career. Now, we just talked about you traveling locally, right, being the 3rd house. But when we look at the 10th house, and then when we look at the new moon in Sagittarius, Sagittarius really speaks to foreign places and foreign things. So it looks like you're going to have to incorporate something with regards to your career and foreign people, foreign things. It can also have to do with travel, generally speaking, because Sagittarius rules the 9th house of travel. The law could be implicated here too. So it could be that whole total eclipse maybe takes away what you've been enjoying so far in your career, just traveling locally. And this new moon in your career zone says, okay, but now we want you to start traveling internationally, or at least at further distances. And you see this as a potential block for you, that you were enjoying doing the local traveling around, and now you've got to do this international travel. And you may have to overcome some obstacles that you have. But this will be a new beginning, for sure, in your 10th house, Pisces. Now, we know that you've got Neptune still in your sign, exerting a few things. It exerts certainly a lot of compassion. It gives you enormous amounts of intuition to see into any aspect of what's happening in your life. So I hope there's some Pisces that are using their intuition. Now, on the 10th, you're going to have lovely Venus trining Neptune. So I would be looking forward to the 10th, just after that eclipse, where you've got this lovely trine energy coming in, really setting up some beautiful energy, certainly with regards to love at its highest. I mean, if we look at Neptune being the higher octave here of Venus, and then Venus being the other planet trining Neptune. This could bring in some potential for some real compassion, for sure, but it can bring in soulmates at this time for some Pisces that are open to that. It can also bring in, for those Pisces that are, say, in the music world or art world of some sort, huge opportunities for inspiration to produce some beautiful music, beautiful poetry, or beautiful pieces of art at this time. So look to the 10th for those folks that are involved in those areas as supreme inspiration. So we have Jupiter now back in your sign, right? For at least most of December as well. The last week of December, Jupiter will go back into Aries. So here you've got Jupiter also back in your sign. Now it's at 28, 29 degrees of Pisces. So certainly for those Pisces that have, or Pisces ascendants, around 28, 29 degrees, this is like a double dip again, right? A double dip into beneficial things coming your way, teachers, advisors coming in to bring great benefits for you. But at its core, in Pisces, this is like really high level inspiration. And for some advanced Pisces, this could have some Pisces taking on some huge compassionate projects that will have a real impact on the world as it reaches out from a standpoint of charity and compassion, right? So go for it, Pisces, for those that are into doing that type of thing. This will be a good opportunity for you to implement Jupiter in the last degrees of Pisces here, right? Jupiter will come back into your sign in 12 years again. So you'll have opportunities to do something then. But you're not going to have Neptune there. So it's kind of like a nice play on a charity type things, compassion, and of course, huge intuition of some sort. And it might be for some Pisces, intuition on where should I be going next in terms of compassionate projects. All right, take care of yourself, Pisces. All right, so that wraps up this video for November 2022. For those folks that are watching this, say, in advance of November, I'm certainly going to be publishing this at the end of October 2022. Know that November is really peppered with surprising, unexpected things coming into your life and leaving your life. But that the latter half of November truly is bringing in this so wonderful, optimistic, inspirational Sagittarian energy that gives us a clear view to our future. That's Sagittarius looking to the future. So remain optimistic even in times of doubt at the beginning of November, potentially. As always, I love doing people's charts. I would say this is an ideal time, November and December, to kick off an understanding of the year ahead for yourself for 2023. So please reach out to me. All my details are below. You can see what you want to do. Contact me by email with your actual birth details, and we can just set up something from there. If you live in San Diego, that's where I live. And so we can meet face-to-face. Otherwise, we do a Zoom meeting, and I record that for you and send it to you, along with a full report and your charts. And of course, the Zoom meeting lasts for about an hour or so, just for those that may be thinking of doing it. That gives you a bit of idea of what I do for you. All right, so we've got December to look forward to. I've already covered that. The big thing about December, of course, is Jupiter will be going into Aries towards the latter part of December. And that's positive new energy going forward, just new energy, because that, of course, is what Aries is all about, is new energy, new roads opening up. Take care of yourself, everybody, and take care of those around you, too. We will talk to you probably next in December in conjunction with, I will be doing my 2023 year ahead I will try to sandwich that in before the end of the year. Leave your comments and suggestions. I always love hearing from everybody. Bye for now, sending you lots of love. Please take care of yourself.